2026, everybody. That's right. We are here. New year, new rules, season 8. I don't know if this is our season 7 finale or if this is our season 8 premiere or if this is one of those weird little like in-between episodes when everybody else is off, but we keep going because we just are addicted to this for the love of the game. But Luke, here we are after sitting through 4 kind of good episodes in November and 3 very, very questionable episodes last week at Christmas. We are here, the big, grandiose 2-hour-long Stranger Things finale. There were some people that even went and paid money to see this in a theater. Why they would do that, I don't know. But hey, different strokes, I guess. Because I mean, I can understand it if it was a movie, but this is not a movie. This is a TV show finale. Like I always make this comparison. As good as The Sopranos, as Game of Thrones, as The Wire, all the great TV shows are, I would never ever pay money to watch any of those episodes in a theater because like part of the joy, the majesty of them is watching them at home. But I digress. I'm not going to be the old man yelling at the clouds here. Before we get started talking about the actual finale, it's funny because I was so ready to go in, ready to hate this, ready to dogpile all over this, ready to be like, look, let's just get this over with. Let's get through the big smash grab, boom bang, action heavy finale. There were a lot of tropes. Nobody died, as was to be expected. There were a lot of fake outs. Man, they had a lot of
they
fake
even
outs.
cut to black.
They had a cut to black after one. I'm like, these motherfuckers. I'm like, I know Steve Harrington is not dying here. Come on. I know that you are too chicken shit to kill off any actual main characters. The only characters that die in Stranger Things are the fringe characters and the bad guys. They're the only ones. But before we actually like get to that, as I realize I just spoiled it, but I don't care because guess what? You all should have watched it by now. It's on Netflix. You have no excuse. I'm sorry.
And everyone in the world has already spoiled it.
Exactly.
Throughout the internet.
We've already missed that. We're already kind of past that point. But Luke, I mean, I wanted to take a step back because I mean, I know obviously it's become a running joke with the show that we talked about now, not once, not twice, but you really got to stop to consider how this really was not just obviously the finale of this show, but this really was the end of an era. Like the show started in summer of 2016. Like just take that into consideration.
Yes, the Obama era.
The Obama era, the last year of the Obama era. Was it Stranger Things that was signaling the beginning of Trump? I don't know, but it was literally a completely different era. We were in such different points in our lives, you know, obviously because of the age gap, we never would have had any interaction. You were what, 12? I was 19.
No, I was 14.
You were 14. I was 19. So like we never would have had any interaction, but it really is crazy because obviously, naturally, because it's the series finale overall, the Duffers are going to throw in flashbacks to the previous seasons. And it was just wild watching like the throwbacks to like them as like little kids, and because it wasn't just them that's changed physically, obviously they are all now young adults, but also literally like the look of the show. Like the show just looked so different back in 2016 when it first aired as opposed to now when it has become like this gigantic over the top blockbuster extravaganza that's like on the level that is more in common with Avengers Endgame than like Stephen King's It, or at least the miniseries It. I should preface.
Yeah, exactly. It's like we said, we've discussed this. It's outgrown its premise, but they kind of course corrected or at least leaned into it, which benefited them. But yeah, the flashbacks, I don't know. I think flashbacks to this extent, they're always a bit self-indulgent. Like Dead Reckoning did it in the very not Dead Reckoning, Final Reckoning did it in the very beginning. That was a bit much. I got flashback to that. So yeah, I was like, okay, yes. We get it. It's been a lot of seasons. It usually hasn't been that many seasons.
That's the thing. It hasn't been that many seasons.
Compared to how many years
it's been a long time, but this is only 5th season. 5 seasons over 10 years. I'm trying to think of another show that's done that. I can't think of one.
No, I think Severance will be up there if it gets to 4 or 5 seasons. But yeah, I guess I'm glad that it's over because like my biggest problem with this was I was not that excited for it because it had been so long. I'm over it, but now it's over and I can stop thinking or worrying about it. And it was a good ending overall.
It was a good ending.
So I think people are pleased there.
Yes, I will say our biggest worry going into this was that, especially after, oh man, that last episode, like I still can't get over too how like much funnier Will's like coming out scene was like in hindsight than it was like initially watching it, because initially watching it, like it's already been spoiled for me. So I'm like, okay, like when are we just gonna get to this? And then it happens, and I'm like, this is just so bafflingly stupid how this is done. And then I have to step back and think about the context in which it is said, and I'm like, wait, hold on. Vecna, Will was scared about coming out because he thought that Vecna was gonna like use the fact that he's gay as like a thing to separate him and like make his friends hate him. Like
I don't know. I
dude,
think they lost their own thread when they were writing it. Like they were going in some direction, and then
yeah.
they kind of
They
ran into a
were
corner,
so
and then it was too
hell
late.
bent on getting to the finale that we're like, just fuck it, just throw it in there. Like we need something big for the penultimate episode so that we can like get it going. But like I said, so all this is to say that we were worried going into this final episode. We're like, okay, like are we in for another Game of Thrones situation here? And we weren't. But like this is not a Game of Thrones situation. They nailed it. They actually did make the finale work somehow. We're gonna get into that. But it's funny because I saw a TikTok yesterday, and I believe I sent it to you, where it's like the 4 different kinds of TV shows. And I don't think I've seen a better breakdown of specifically the prestige era of TV, because that's obviously really what this applies to, than with anything else. Because so you had basically, it was the 4 categories are absolute cinema TV, which is TV, obviously, like the greats that just keep getting better and better with each season. The one-offs, which are the ones that have like one great season and then just completely peter off for the rest. You know, your Westworlds, your Prison Breaks. You've got I forgot the name of the third category, which is for like the Game of Thrones as shows, which have like a really, really good first couple of seasons and then trail off near the end.
Prime and Decline.
Prime and Decline, that's the one. And then there's what Stranger Things falls flat into, which is it's comfort viewing. And I'm actually really glad that I have the finale now to put that within context, to have that in order to place the show within the right context, because I think the mistake that I myself and a lot of the people on the internet have been making, that yes, while the timing of the show's release was the thing that was working against it consistently, is the fact that it took so fucking long for us to get season 4 and 5 that it literally became a running joke, even amongst the castmates, to the point where literally it's like, yeah, the kids are not even kids anymore. They're literally just adults posing as teenagers, which, okay, like, so like they wrote it into the show in order to account for it, that conveniently there's a year in between each season. So they were kind of able to get away with it. But the thing that I didn't realize, obviously, is the fact that like when the show ended, like when it was having, like, because it's one of those classic finales where it's like, oh, they solve the actual plot and they defeat Vecna at like the hour 10, hour like 20 mark, if that. So you still have another like 40 minutes of wrap up to like say goodbye.
I looked at that, I'm like, oh, this is some Lord of the Rings crap.
It does. It has its Lord
of
the Rings
it
moment,
worked.
But it worked and it earned it. And I gotta say, man, it left me a little misty-eyed. It left me a little tear-eyed, where I'm like, holy shit, like, even though I'm a little older than you, I'm not exactly the prime demographic for the show, but like, it's another one of those things similar to kind of like, and it's funny because I didn't really have this feeling when Harry Potter ended, because I was still really young when Harry Potter ended, it because I was too young to start watching that in theaters, so I only saw the last 4 in theaters. Kind of similar to how when the MCU had Endgame, but then they kind of screwed that up by, continuing to make movies after that and content. So Endgame kind of lost, I feel like, a lot of its appeal, especially now that we know that, like, oh, Doomsday is now set to, like, retcon the rest of the MCU and be, like, just a direct sequel to Endgame. I'm like, okay, like, whatever. In the Russos, I trust, I guess. But with this show ending, you really got to look back and be like, wow, this really is like the end of an era. And I really felt it in a way that I truly was not expecting to. Like, I was really, really surprised. I'm like, wow, like just going through all the characters, seeing all of like the teenagers who are now like my age and like in their 30s, like Steve, Robin, John, and Nancy all hanging out, like all reminiscing, seeing Hopper and Joyce collectively moving on, seeing them all graduate high school, and then seeing them play all, one last D&D game in the basement, and they're reminiscing about whether Eleven's alive or not. And then Holly comes running down, and her friends are as like the new generation. Like it's checking all
Stranger Things legacy.
Stranger Things legacy. Exactly. It's checking all the boxes. We've seen this a million times before, but man, it worked for me. It worked for me in a way that I really, really, really was not expecting. Like, I truly, truly felt like, okay, like, I don't necessarily know if it earns it. And there is a lot of like, feeling itself and propping itself up for the sake of propping itself up. And it's a lot more, like I said, it's the reputation of the show has changed. It kind of surpassed it just being initially a good show, and kind of ultimately, again, it's one of those things where the reputation of the show itself got away from, I think, the actual quality, which certainly ranged, obviously, all over the place. Like I said, season 3 was a particular low point. Season 4, I thought they kind of brought it back a little bit. And this season, while certainly all over the place, I will say that it ending the way that it did definitely left me feeling better than I thought I was going to coming out of those last couple episodes.
Yeah, exactly. I think the Duffers, it's clear they always knew like eventually where they were going. Maybe they didn't figure out every single like villain of each season, but they always knew like that the last image, the one more D&D game, where all the characters are going to end up. So they handled that really well. Again, even with Game of Thrones, like a lot of those things, I thought like, okay, everyone ended up where they should be, almost everyone. Uh, and the same as here. And yes, season 5, I brought up that it's so plot focused. Everything needs to happen X way so that the characters kind of lose agency. So they're just kind of gliding through the season. But I guess it all came together
It really
in
did.
this final
It
episode.
really did.
Like you can joke about the exposition-y, the finishing each other's sentences in every scene up to the last episode. But yeah, I think they delivered on the finale, both in the first hour and the second hour. I guess we'll, because they're very different. Like
They
you could
are very
basically be
different. It
two
really is. Like
episodes
they
at this
literally
point.
took like the last 2 episodes and clearly just merged them into one.
Yeah, because they did that in the last one, but that one felt more like one thing. I guess because
Yeah.
it's the series finale, they have to take that
Yeah.
half hour to set everything.
To wrap
for,
everything up,
yeah.
honestly. And like I said, it's and every nitpicker on the internet is already going through it and already pointing out every single like loose lingering plot thread that was.
I will say
from the
everyone's like,
show.
okay, but what about Dr. K? Like, tell me one thing about that character that you care about, that you need to know what ended up with her. Like,
At the end of the day, she was just another stock military antagonist who was there to serve, like almost everything else in the season, a plot focus. And I guess that's the thing too, is that in order to kind of address some of the certain of the criticisms, like I said, there are some that I absolutely certainly agree with. I guess just kind of overall the general like kind of shticks of the show, people kind of got a little bit too familiar with and got sick of. But what I will say is that I guess kind of the reason why it's more so like the reputation of the show kind of outshone the show itself, because I feel like obviously while the show obviously did change and shift from its original form, what it was initially conceived of, at the same time it didn't, because, and I guess kind of what I was thinking about when I was thinking when I was in the shower before I hopped on this stream, is that the Duffers, when they conceived of this, they always initially conceived of it as a movie but told across 8 episodes. Like the reason, if anything, I feel like the reason why so many of those MCU shows didn't work is because they were trying to copy that formula but didn't quite understand what made it work. And the fact that the Duffers essentially pulled a J.J. Abrams and Lindelof with Lost, honestly, where essentially they didn't have any like specific plot details for an overhanging show just for those initial 8 episodes. But what they did is they had what they called like, you know, a lookbook, a show Bible that basically had like, you know, just kind of different ideas that they had that they wanted to play around with. That obviously, while certain ideas, you know, definitely kind of were a little bit half baked and they definitely retconned and were figuring a lot of stuff out along the way, the fact that they still kind of were able to They were still kind of able to use that to their advantage ultimately. That now, obviously, given the grand scope of the final season, allows them to kind of get away, I guess you could say, with the, you know, more plot-heavy stuff, especially given the fact that the way that this season was initially set up after season 4 ended was that, like, okay, like, you now have all the mystery has been revealed. You know who the ultimate big bad is. He has literally made the next step. His ultimate evil plan had succeeded. He's invaded the world. So now it made sense for, also after a season where the majority of the characters were separated, so, you know, across like, you know, literally all over the globe, you now had them all back together, all working together in conjunction. Like I said, it's the end game to Infinity War. And so I guess the fact of the criticism of this being a blockbuster, definitely taking away from it working as a TV show, I agree. But that doesn't mean that it necessarily got away from what it started as, if that makes sense. Because it was always initially conceived to be like kind of a blockbuster in television form. There's a reason why each season is ultimately formatted as, you know, a movie. You know, Stranger Things 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, not season 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. I'm not saying obviously that's a semantics argument, but
yeah, I guess it grew into that, and as the scale of the show grew, so grew the budget. Because like people were watching it and they got to put the budget somewhere. I guess 'cause you got to use all of it, or they won't give you as much next time.
Right.
That's what
even though this was the
That's
last season, so they could really, really
yeah.
go all
Yeah.
out
So,
for it.
okay, give us a billion, and we'll use it all. And
Yeah.
honestly, like
They
it
used
does
it,
look
and those
pretty
effects. Yeah,
spectacular.
best looking Netflix thing I've ever seen. It's so funny because it makes me harken back to the days of like when they obviously had to hide the Demogorgon because they didn't have the money to make it look good enough, and like all of those like terribly choreographed fights on all of those Netflix Marvel shows. And now, like obviously looking at like the type of money that Netflix can funnel into their productions. Of course, it's going to be a long time before we get another production like this ultimately, because at the end of the day, money like this is usually only funneled into like miniseries that are like along the lines of like, you know, historical recreation and stuff like that. Like that Death by Lightning show that Benioff and Weiss produced with Michael Shannon and Matthew McFadden, which I heard was very good, and I do still plan on watching it. But
They should put some of that in Three Body
they,
Problem
they
for
well,
season 2 and 3 because they'll need it.
they are gonna need it, yeah, based on what's coming. And I do appreciate that Netflix is going to wrap that. But yeah, and in terms of part of the legacy as well, like it really just made me look back to like, yeah, all the shows that like made me like really enjoy Netflix during my era. Like I look at all the upcoming shows they have, and aside from another season of Beef, the occasional miniseries that they do, and if they make another season of Black Mirror, I'm always gonna watch Black Mirror when that drops. All the shows that like I watched on Netflix growing up are done. You know, BoJack and House of Cards ended years ago. Cobra Kai wrapped up last year. Stranger Things is now done. Ozark wrapped up a few years ago. All of like, you know, the little one-offs that I watch, you know, that got canceled.
It's kind
American
of like
Vandal.
a one of the Mount Rushmores of
Yeah.
Netflix. Like I think what House of Cards, Stranger Things, maybe Squid Game, just because
Squid Game,
became
yeah,
the
but
most viewed thing of all
yeah,
time. But yeah, it's definitely like one of those top like pop culture things
yeah.
that will last long past this. I guess it kind of also, I don't know if it kickstarted the trend. It kind of popularized the trend of like, oh, the 80s are back,
Oh yeah,
like
this is the reason. This is
yeah.
the originator of that trend. Which I don't know. Like I feel like you're much more in touch with trends than I am. Is that trend like still a thing or?
I think it's died off. I
All right,
think,
good.
especially now that the
Yeah,
show is
perfect
over.
timing. Perfect timing. Couldn't have timed that better.
Yeah,
But yeah, and so, uh, I guess the whole in terms of like the plotting, right, and ultimately what Vecna's evil plan was, and like again, like for a show that like there, it's very clear that they were like pulling shit out of their ass at the last minute. I still feel like they did a pretty good job of like tying together the threads of like, oh, why Vecna was kidnapping the kids and what ultimately his evil plan was, and it all kind of lined up. And we even still found out stuff in this finale that, you know, after we thought that we had known everything, that we found out about. You know, we found out that the whole reason why and kind of the origination of his powers and therefore all the other kids' powers, you know, because they all started with him, he is number one, was because, you know, that scene in the mine where he got initially infected with the piece of
yeah.
the mind
He
flare,
got an Infinity Stone,
literally. So,
and they don't really explain that, which I appreciated.
yeah,
Like,
they didn't need to though,
yeah.
like
So
at all.
people would clamor for it, but like,
Yeah.
okay, you got to leave some mystery.
Yeah, and like obviously, and I like the thing of where it's like they didn't make him a sympathetic figure, but like, you know, they again did the best that they could in terms of like, you know, showing the connection between him and Will, despite Noah Schnapp. Oh my god, I can't even like account for just how bad he is as an actor. Like talk about somebody who got worse. Like I said, it's him and Millie Bobby Brown in a sprint to the finish line as far as who got worse as an actor and just started caring less as they got older. But that doesn't mean I don't want to take away from everybody else, because for the most part, every other actor in this show, the good ones, I will say, like really, really stood out. Like Dave Harbour, crazy person as he is in real life, was still fucking awesome. Finn Wolfhard, I know everybody loves to shit on him. I still think he's great as Mike. I think he's continued to be like, even though the show moved on past him for some reason, he's still like, he was still really good. Joe Keery as Steve. Caleb McLaughlin as Lucas, still really good. Sadie Sink joined in season 2, but awesome. Gaten Matarazzo as Dustin, who just continued to get better with each progressing season. You know, like Brett Gelman still had some funny one-liners in there. Like like I said, all of the things that made us fall in love with the show are still very much there. They're just enmeshed in all of this like crazy hype mania, you know, and it's kind of why I constantly am having a hard time like I guess buying into the criticisms now that it's over. You know, while we were in it and like certain things that I had issues with, yeah, absolutely. But like, I'm not gonna come away and say that this was a bad finale, and it's still not. And while this was definitely one of the weaker seasons for sure, I still have 1, 2, and 4 ranked higher than this for my overall ranking that I just dropped on YouTube Shorts. I still can't say that overall my time with this season was wasted. Ultimately, the way that I thought it was gonna be.
Yeah, I guess since we like just finished watching it, it hasn't like had that time to simmer. I've watched the other seasons like basically every time the show like came back, I just rewatched the whole thing. It's been long enough that
Yeah.
I could watch it again and still enjoy it to the same level. So I guess how will this season age? That's another
Yeah.
question. Um, but yeah, like you said, like they wrapped it up, and then from that perspective, it's like, oh, okay, maybe it wasn't that bad. Like it all ended up. They knew where they were going. They stumbled a bit along the way, but like you said, it's everything we love is still there. It's just maybe like in a bigger font, if you
Yeah,
will.
literally, like much, much, much bigger font. And I gotta say, I still don't know if they earned it, but them playing Heroes over the end credit was, I'm like, ooh, I'm like, Duffers, you sons of bitches, you know what you're doing. Because you listen, if you're gonna play Heroes by David Bowie over the end credits, you better fucking earn it. Because I've only seen that happen in 2 movies. One, it was used pitch perfectly in. The other one, I'm like, I'm still not quite sure if it earned it, but it works because I just love that song. That's Perks of Being a Wallflower and Jojo Rabbit. So the fact that they pulled that song out for the end credit, they were definitely feeling themselves a little bit. But again, given that like the show, like I said, very much Return of the Kingdom itself, where it had this very wistful, very emotionally long, like kind of, giving each of the main characters who we've spent all this time with a chance to really say goodbye to them. Like for me, I'm like, man, it really it hit me over the head like a bag of bricks in a way that I truly, truly was not expecting.
Yeah, like emotionally, they nailed everything. I think they used Heroes, but it was a cover in season 1, right at the
They
end.
did?
I think so.
I don't know. Listen, I haven't watched season 1 since 2016. That's the other thing, is that like
No, that's true. So you don't
I
even so you don't even remember just how good it
right.
is.
Yeah, exactly. I remember like watching clips of it and being like, oh shit, I remember seeing that for the first time. Being like, yeah, I will tell you, because my whole thing with TV shows is once it finishes, I always have to let it simmer a bit before I do a full rewatch, right? Like I still have not done a full rewatch of Succession since it
I haven't
ended.
done Game of Thrones yet. I'm gonna finish the
I have
books
not
and
done
then I'm
Game of
gonna
Thrones
do
recently,
it.
but only because I did the full recap of it during COVID for the show. So
Yeah.
that's the only reason why I was letting that simmer. And then I also did my full rewatch of Sopranos then too. I started Breaking Bad 2 or 3 years ago, but I'm gonna get back to it at some point. Because I love watching the clips, and the big one obviously is we're still doing Lost, and then I'm gonna do The Wire rewatch for 27 for the 25-year anniversary. There's a couple other ones obviously, but like so Mad Men I only wrapped up recently. Succession I only wrapped up recently, so those I'm gonna take a little bit of time to rewatch. But yeah, it's gonna be a while, but especially now that we have all 5 seasons and we can watch them all back to back in a vacuum. And thankfully, this is, Netflix, one of Netflix's crown jewels. So this will thankfully reliably always be on Netflix. It's going to be interesting to go back and rewatch this in its entirety rather than having the gaps that I've had in between each season. And like it's gonna be fun, like going back and rewatching and reflecting, like, oh yeah, I was at this point in my life. Because I assume you've seen also like all the TikToks of everybody as they're like doing like, oh, I'm now this years old with this final season, but I was once literally going over like the last 10 years of their lives and how they've literally aged and grown up with the show. It's funny, like I said, I was literally talking to I was talking to a friend of mine who is literally a decade younger than me, and we were talking about the finale, and she was like, oh my God, like it's crazy. Like I've literally grown up with this show. I'm like, yeah, like it's because like my whole thing. I'm like, yeah, I was 19. I was in between my freshman and sophomore year of college when the first season dropped. Season 2 was the fall of my junior year. Season 3 was the summer after I graduated. And then season 4 was that weird like post-COVID Arrested Development
Yeah,
year of
it was 22.
spring of 2022 exactly. And then we just got the 5th one, and like here I am. I'm a year and a half away from 30. So yeah, it's been a wild ride to say the least.
Yeah, I guess I don't know. I don't feel like that sad about it.
Right.
Like it's kind of been there, but like it's been there so sporadically and like every now and then, and it's not such a constant. Like the MCU when there was a movie
Right.
every 3 months,
Right.
for a while, and it culminated in Endgame. That was for me like a wow. This
Right.
phase of my life is over now. It's back because there's
Yeah, now it's back. That was my thing. It
just
never
like,
went away. It
yeah,
went away for a
put
year.
everything
And then it came
back. Put it all
Yeah,
back.
put it all back. Put it all back. We fucked up. We messed up. Yeah, it's funny. I don't know. Maybe that's just because it's so funny because to me, I'm always like, yeah, time away from. It's so funny because obviously, yeah, I've had my problems with the massive amount of gaps in between shows, and I've obviously made that no secret. But it is interesting how, given enough time, away from something, especially something that ironically is so steeped in nostalgia because nostalgia was part of the reason why the show exists, how it makes me nostalgic for different points of my life. And I don't necessarily know if this is because of the show or if this is just like the effect that the show has. But yeah, it was really interesting, kind of like seeing that it had this effect on me, especially given that like for the first hour they're moving so fast, because they finally have the plan. Nancy's basically turned into Rambo with the fucking machine guns. Next thing you know, they're fighting the Mind Flayer again, but in as yet another giant spider goop thing. Like, by the way, the effects look way better than when they tried to do that shit in season 3. Which, by the way, I thought that was really funny because you're like, yep, they did the spider again. They did the Pennywise thing.
Yep.
So
they did it bigger this time.
they did it way bigger. That thing was a fucking titan right there.
Yeah, I guess my sort of main issue would be with the first hour. It all felt a little easy. I don't know. It like you could throw some demogorgons at them or something.
Yeah.
Like have some sacrifices.
I think they wasted all of. I think they wasted all the money and the budget with the with the recreation of the Mind Flayer too. Plus, I think the Vecna was too busy, like finally like starting to enact his plan that he didn't have time to send demogorgons at them. I'm not trying to make excuses, but like just like things that I noticed.
Yeah, and I guess the 11 thing, I'm like, okay, it's ambiguous, but like, does it have to be? I don't know. I wasn't a fan of it because they have a history of not committing to this, like the Hopper in season 3 and Max in season 4, and now this is like, okay, is Mike just making it up or yeah?
What's funny about that is I thought that was going to be one of those things because obviously again it exists. It's funny. I thought it was going to be one of those things that I was going to hate, where I'm like, oh, it's the fake out for her. She's actually alive and all that, but I actually liked the ambiguity of it. And I never thought I would hear myself saying that, but the ambiguity of it was kind of nice. And I love too that like it's done from the perspective of Mike as the dungeon master, as the chief storyteller. The fact that it's another one of those kinds of, again, this is the only thing I'd say that it does have in common with the Game of Thrones finale, but it does it right in a way that Game of Thrones did not, which is like making it ultimately like about stories. But the reason why this one does it right, as opposed to Game of Thrones, where they're like, oh, we're going to use stories as an excuse to justify and basically literally just move past all the shit that's happened that everybody should be having natural reaction to. Like Game of Thrones, you kind of collectively felt like, oh, we just want to move on, even though there's all of this unresolved shit that we have to like still address that we're just not going to. With this one, with Stranger Things, it's like, no, we have clearly resolved everything. Everybody has moved on. There's a reason why, the high school graduation, when we catch up with them, is 18 months after the initial wrap up, when 11 first disappears, dies. And what I like is how Mike posits it from the position of the storyteller. The fact that, yeah, I'm ultimately at the end of the day telling you a story. It could be true. It could not be. It's ultimately up to your interpretation, right? Which I feel like if that was a plot element, it would have annoyed me more. But the fact that it's like kind of like just like one added little morsel that they throw on there that is literally that again is meant to be like, oh, this has all just been another story at the end of the day. The fact that this show was, started around the idea of Dungeons and Dragons, which in and of itself is a role playing storytelling game. I thought that was a really interesting and surprisingly clever detail.
Yeah, I guess the thing is, I don't have any strong opinions on this finale. It's just like it was good. They needed to end the show, and that's exactly what they did. Yes. It's nothing too shocking or impactful. But just what they had set up, what the fans kind of wanted. They wanted the big dragon fight. We got the big spider fight.
The big dragon
close
spider
enough.
Fight.
So,
what was your reaction when you saw it? You're like, oh, like, did you guess immediately once we saw like Vecna's fortress like a couple episodes ago that you're like, oh, we're getting the Mind Flayer back and we're getting like a giant kaiju fight? Like, did you guess that? Or
I guess people were like sort of anticipating the big dragon fight ever since that painting of.
Well, that had been hyped up apparently all the way back in season 1, supposedly, with the whole like introduction of like the Demogorgon and then the Mind Flayer.
I guess so. Then I figured, man, the copy of it in their writer's room must be very yellow at this point.
I mean, listen, it helped that Welcome to Derry was literally airing for the last 8 weeks, so that definitely didn't hurt.
Yeah.
Like I said, it's just it's so crazy. Me just like sitting here and like. And I don't even know what the rest of their trajectories are. Well, I mean, I know Dave Harbour's in the MCU now. Millie Bobby Brown has her own fashion line. Gayton just wants to continue to do stuff on Broadway and, just continue to act. Finn Wolfhard's a director now, which is insane to say. Caleb
Sadie Sinks in the MCU
86 in
now.
the MCU
She
now.
might be Jean
She
Grey.
might
She
be Jean
might be
Grey.
someone else.
Caleb McLaughlin is literally the GOAT in the upcoming DreamWorks GOAT movie produced by Steph Curry, which is hilarious. And could potentially play live action Miles Morales, which would be pretty cool if that happened. It's either got to be him or Asante Black. There's nobody else who could do that live action Miles. Because Shamik Moore is way too old, so he couldn't do it. And yeah, it was. I don't know. It's in conclusion a finale that left me a lot more emotional than I thought I would be going in. And again, never in a million years did I think that I was going to be saying that about the Stranger Things finale, especially given the rigmarole that this season put us through. But man, I got to give it to the Duffer Brothers. They pulled it off somehow. They gave us truly, I don't know, definitely not the best thing of the past decade, but definitely a monumental, massive cultural moment, if you will, point in time that will not be replicated by anything else for a long, long time. And I hope that they continue to do whatever it is that they want to do. You know, now that they're going over to Paramount, now that they're, now that their deal at Netflix is done. I know they want to make blockbuster movies. I hope that they can continue to make something good. It's always interesting looking at showrunner track records, post their giant iconic shows where some are able to kind of keep their momentum going. Some of them kind of peter off. Some of them just straight up disappear, like David Chase ultimately wanted to make movies after The Sopranos, but he kind of could never escape it. Vince Gilligan stayed in the Breaking Bad universe, but ultimately to his benefit, because now with what he's doing with Pluribus, Matthew Weiner just kind of disappeared after Mad Men and really has not come back. Damon Lindelof has, I'd say, been kind of figuring his way out, because Lost was both simultaneously so big, but at the same time so they were still very much figuring out what they were doing. So it kind of gave him the freedom to really do what he wanted with The Leftovers and Watchmen. And now he's kind of been messing around, and now he's potentially got a new show coming out with that thing you sent me, The Chain. So
he almost did a Star Wars movie.
He almost did a Star Wars movie.
Would have been incredible, but
yeah, that would have been the greatest Star Wars movie ever made. But yeah, so it's going to be interesting watching the Duffer Brothers track record going forward. And yeah, overall, I can't believe I haven't said this about a while, but I just got to tell them thanks. Thanks for giving us Stranger Things, because as problematic as it is something that you, me, and everybody else who grew up and watched this show while it was on, we are never, ever going to forget it. That's a tough thing to pull off, especially in the age of the internet when monoculture has all but disappeared. It's tough to come up with something that everybody can congregate around and watch and talk about. It's I famously said that ended in 2019 when Game of Thrones was over. When I thought that Stranger Things was going to end, because the way that season 3 ended initially, I was like, oh yeah, this has to be the final season. They can't possibly come back for more. And then they did. So yeah, it's, goodbye to Stranger Things. I'm going to miss it. I never thought I would say that about it. As far as my overall final rating for the final season is barely a 3.5 out of 5. I edged it up to 5.5 because of the finale. The finale itself is a 4 for me. I really, really dug this finale a lot more than I thought I would.
Yeah, I think that sums it up pretty well. And the fact that the way I see it, it's the best Stephen King thing that isn't a Stephen King thing. They were gonna do it. The Warner Brothers wanted to make a movie. They went with that direction. So they said, okay, we're gonna do our own King thing. And that's one of the things that always happens. Like Spielberg wanted to make a Bond movie, they didn't let him, so he made Indiana Jones. So there's that kind of trajectory. So
right.
They took it, they smashed it together with 80s nostalgia, with Dungeons and Dragons, and some great character work, incredible first season that kind of teered off into bigger and bigger escalations.
Yeah. Although I'll still stand by season 2. In hindsight, within the course of the show, season 2 I think definitely really, really holds up in a way that was kind of got a little bit of unfair reaction.
Yeah, and then in season 3 they started, okay, we're gonna always have 3 plots going at once, and then they're somehow gonna connect, and it didn't quite work in there in season 4. But they never lost the core of the show, which is the characters, the character interactions, which I think is more important than plot. In many cases, that's why Game of Thrones kind of fell apart in season 8. So again, monumental job to make a show that grows this popular. It's top 5 shows most popular of all time. Gotta be. They never lost the core of it, and they landed it. They land the ship You know, they might have forgotten to deploy the landing gear, but they landed. Everyone made home safe. So
as Bill Simmons says, there are also coin. You know, like I said, I talked about the 4 different kinds of shows that there are, and Bill Simmons on the Rewatchables, or maybe it was the Prestige. I don't remember which podcast it was, but he talked about there are the 5 different ways to end a TV show. There's landing the plane. There's taking a big swing and having it be polarizing. There's just straight up fucking it up. There is limping to the finish line, and then there is didn't quite work at the time, but in hindsight has gotten better with age. You know, that's where I feel like, you know, the finales for Sopranos, Lost, The Wire, you know, Mad Men.
Like Lost is going to be all 5 of those.
All 5 of those it was, exactly. But like I said, I was fully expecting this to go into either they were going to take a big swing and miss, or they were just going to straight fuck it up, or worse, that they were going to limp to the finish line. But thankfully, with this finale, they nailed it. They landed the plane for sure, which again, did not think that I would be saying that. So that's really it. I can't think of a better way to wrap I know it's technically the first day of 2026, but I can't think of a better way to wrap 2025 to say goodbye to literally the last 10 years of our lives. And you know, look forward to a brand new era ultimately within the Talkin TV space. Like I said, I'm not going to do too much hyping up for the new year, because I will be uploading different schedule posts in order to let you guys know what we have coming up. We've got a lot of good stuff coming up, but like I said, Luke, this was it. We had a crazy 2025, and man, 2026 is on the horizon, and we have got some stuff to look forward to this year, to say
it's the year we finished Lost.
It's the year we finished Lost, but we got The Odyssey, we got Dune 3, we got Robert Eggers' Werewolf, we got Project Hail Mary. I'm still looking forward to Emerald Fennell's Wuthering Heights, even if that turns out to be a hot mess. Zach Krieger's Resident Evil, new non-Mission Impossible Tom Cruise with the Digger as finally been revealed. New Spielberg. We got some stuff to look forward to for sure.
And the Doomsday, which is going to be a talking point
Avengers
all year.
Doomsday, which the
more we learn about it
all year. Yeah,
I will say that like the X-Men teaser is like, okay, I'm there. I'm signed up.
Oh,
like Cyclops going crazy. Like, okay, that's I'm there.
As soon as they announced the OG X-Men, I'm like, motherfucker. Of course I gotta be there opening day just to see how they're gonna nerf all of my childhood favorites.
It's their final goodbye for the 5th time.
I love how too they put out the one photo where it's like, well, who do we think is gonna die in Doomsday? And somebody's like, I can give you one guess, and it shows all the different ways that Professor X has died in the different movies before. It's like, oh man, it's like, how are they gonna kill him this time? I mean, what humiliating way are they gonna kill him this time? It's like adamantium through the chest, vaporized, or neck snapped while in the cosmic limbo. So, oh man, well, like I said, it's been a crazy 2025. We're gonna see you guys in 2026. Luke, where can the good people follow you on the interwebs?
They can follow me at Luke Reviews on YouTube. It is January, which means I'm
catch up time.
My annual motivation has kicked in to reboot Luke Reviews. So I'm gonna watch some 2025 movies that I've missed, and should have that out by the end of the month, hopefully.
Yes. Awesome sauce. Yeah, like I said, I'm especially excited to see your thoughts on Marty Supreme, and I am very, very excited to see your top 10 list, which I always look forward to.
The day after Marty Supreme is when I start making the video.
Yes, sir. That's how
I'm sure it will make it.
Yes, and I have already started work on my end of year top 10 list. You guys can tune in next weekend in order to see our top 10 movies of 2025 panel. I'm going to be doing another big live roundtable. There's going to be some familiar faces on there. There's going to be some new faces on there. You guys are not going to want to miss that. You guys can follow me with everything going on at Movie Nerd Reviews across all platforms, at Official Talkin TV Podcast across all platforms. And overall, this is our goodbye to Stranger Things in the last 10 years of our lives. We'll see you guys next time in the new year. Take care.